Israel Press Association is an organization that was founded more than 2 years ago now. It was founded, in fact it was created to help, to assist journalists, broadly journalists, editors, chief editors, bloggers also, to help them better understand the complexities and the challenges of Israel, and Israel in the broader Middle East, because we realized at the time it has been created by individual people, so we are independent, we are non-government organization. We realized at the time that there were so many controversies about discussion about the coverage of Israel in the media, so we thought it was important to help journalists better understand, because some journalists know Israel, have been in Israel, others have never been, and they probably, it's sometimes difficult to understand exactly what's the situation on the ground. So we created it, and since 2 years we have organized several press trips to Israel. We bring journalists to Israel. We organize briefings like today with distinguished speakers from Israel, from the military, from the political side, from the diplomatic side, also from the academicians. So it's really broad. What we do also is we have a website, and we regularly publish what we call updates. It's like information news on a daily basis about the situation, about issues that we think it's important for journalists to know. We also have a website, and what we do also in our role, especially the role of the office in Israel, of our office in Israel, is to help journalists when they need to have contacts in Israel, if it's a spokesperson or any person, contact person that they need for their work. We have been several times asked, requested to have contact people in Israel, and we always help them. Also when they individually travel to Israel and they need contact with, for example, with their colleagues in Israel. So that's what we do. So now I think, of course, if you have any other question about EIPA, I will be pleased to answer you during the Q&A session. So now the floor is to you, Tal, who will introduce Dr. Kedar.
Thank you, Yossi. Just one more sentence about the Israeli office. Being a journalist for several years, I know that if I have a contact with some source, whatever and whoever it will be, and it's a one-time appearance, and when I need him the next time he's not there, it's not the way to work. So what we are trying to do is to be an enabler, to be there for you if you need us, okay? Please bear in mind, as Yossi said, we are privately held organization. We are an NGO, to say the most about our establishment, okay? So we cannot promise to have any Israeli official be there because you ask, because they're not working for us. But we do have the willing and I hope some capabilities to help you do the best you would find in Israel. As Yossi mentioned, we had the honor to host some delegations. Some of the colleagues here, we had the privilege to host them in Israel, and one of the things I like the most is the fact that, as I open my words, that when they need something else afterwards, we are there at least trying to help. Again, since we are not the office of, there's no guarantee that we'll get an answer, but we certainly would like you to try us and on a daily basis, whenever you need. And it's very simple working with us, because when we don't know or if we can't deliver, we'll just tell you, we are sorry, we can't. But if we are able to be of any help, we see it as our mission to help you guys. Part of those trips, we are not taking journalists to Israel, but bringing some speakers to Europe, is again a response to questions and requests we had from journalists in Europe that did not have the time to go for a whole week. And what we're trying to do is really to gather very carefully very interesting people, again, not officials, but from the academic field, from environmental field, from colleague of yours and mine, a journalist that I think it was here, right? We had Ben Yamini, an Israeli well-known journalist, and we are trying. Yeah, and we are trying to meet your request. And I'm very, very honored to present Dr. Mordechai Kedar, who is an Israeli scholar, but I must say immediately, a very well-known not only in Israel and not only in Western academic institutions, but also in the Arab world. And I don't know, maybe our colleagues from Egypt or other people who are representing other Middle East media outlets may have seen him. He is a professor in the Bar Ilan University, and I have to take my glasses because his fields of interest are more than just one or two, and not just field of interest, but a specialist of Islam, Islamic movements, gender issues in Islam, which is very interesting these days, Arabic mass media, popular culture in Arab world, state and society in the Arab world. And of course, he doesn't only talk about, but he also talk Arabic. He, of course, being a professor to Arabic, he knows the language fluently. So he's not reading about it, he's reading it. And he is a very reliable source, again, also for Arab, and someone might be surprised, but with Arabic media outlets in countries that almost doesn't have anything to do with Israel, at least did not have to do anything with Israel. And I think you are as popular in Doha as in Tel Aviv in media-wise. Dr. Kedar is a member of several academic institutions. He's the director of Center of Study of the Middle East and Islam in the Bar Ilan University, Research Association at the Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies. And I won't read the whole CV, but I would say that one or two of his significant academic publications were The Clash of Value, Gender and Family Issues as a Source of Tension Between Islam and the West, and the Assad in Search of Legitimacy, Message and Rhetoric in the Syrian Press under Hafez and Bashar Assad, which again are quite relevant to what happened in this area these days. I think I talk more than enough. Dr. Kedar, please.
Thank you very much. I will speak from here, not from the pulpit, just to control my computer. First of all, thank you very much, Tal and Yossi, for inviting me. And thank you guys very much for coming, maybe to learn something about the Middle East. And I especially thank my colleagues from the Middle East, Ahlan wa sahlan bikum, those who came maybe to hear what an Israeli academic has to say. Viewing the Arab world which Israel tries to survive in its midst. But before I start talking about the Middle East, I would like to dedicate a few minutes to something which Israelis and people in the West face when they try to understand the Middle East. Israel is a Western country, and Western countries as well, have, I would say, a very well-known toolbox of how to understand life, people, societies, states. Every one of us is growing in a society which shapes his toolbox. How to behave, how to talk, how to relate to people, how to relate to a younger one, how to relate to an older one, how to relate to a woman, to a girl, to an old woman. All these things we grow up with since we are born. Not to push, not to kick, not to spit, not how, as we say it in Yiddish, a mensch, I believe, a man, a human being, should behave in society. What is important, what is less important, what are the priorities, scale of priorities, what are the values of society which he grows up in, what are the goals which he as a person should reach, should achieve, how to relate to government, what mass media mean, how to read a paper, how to listen to TV. All these things which place us, or place every one of us in society, in the environment in which he grows up. In short, I would call it the toolbox of our culture, of Western cultures, which give us all these concepts of a human being who lives in his society. Every society has its own toolbox. For example, some people here sit with crossed legs, and it's okay in Western societies. If you go to Japan and you sit with crossed legs, you are not a mensch, because you offend the people. Who can understand? Because in their toolbox, you are not allowed to sit with crossed legs. In our society, men, women are walking in the streets dressed. More or less, but definitely dressed. There are societies in the world where people are going either totally naked or almost totally naked, and it's okay for them. Because their toolbox allows men and women alike to walk around almost totally or totally exposed, and it doesn't make any problem. I would think that in our society it would make some problems if we walk around all naked. So, because our toolbox doesn't allow it. Their toolbox allows it. And this different culture, I'm not trying to evaluate which toolbox is better or worse. I'm talking saying only that there are different toolboxes in different societies. It is very hard to understand a society using the toolbox of another society. Because if you go to Japan and you sit with crossed legs, you don't understand why they don't talk to you, why you're rejected. Okay, because you try to understand them using your toolbox. It is a failure. Just like if you have let's say a BMW, you will not go to a garage of Ford to take care of your engine, because the computer is different. The culture of BMW is different from the culture of Ford. So you cannot evaluate a problem in BMW with a computer. Maybe you can fix a tire, but nothing more than this. Okay, so these are what difference in cultures. Unfortunately, people, especially from the West, tend to evaluate different cultures using the Western toolbox, especially scales of priorities, and set of values. Because what is sacred to Western societies is not always sacred to other societies. Just for example, the value of life. Value of life in the West is the highest. Because if you don't have life, you have nothing. There are societies in the world which life is temporary, and there are some things which are above life, especially when it comes to the person, to the individual. So it is very hard to evaluate other societies where life of a human being are less in importance than in the West by using the Western concept of the value of life. So this is why, just in a nutshell, the problem of Westerners to understand other societies. When we come to the Middle East, the mistakes are big time because of failures to understand the Middle East by using the Western toolbox. In my view, it is one of the biggest sources of problems of journalists, of academics, and politicians when they relate to the Middle East by using the toolbox which they use in Europe, in America, which fail to work in the Middle East. You have to learn the languages, the culture, literature, poetry, to read what they say, to read what they write, to listen to what they say. And unfortunately, I have no idea how many journalists in Belgium, in particular, and in the West in general, who master Arabic when they come to the Middle East and try to understand the Middle East. Would anybody try to write anything about America without English? Maybe about biology in America, or physics, or mountains, or something like this. Would anybody try to understand the Belgians without French and Flemish? Can it be done? Okay? So the same is the Arab world or the Islamic world, which is much more complicated to understand without the indigenous languages. And this is just a remark for the beginning. When we go to the Middle East now to understand, this is more or less the map which we get from our bosses when you go to the Middle East. Different countries, different colors, borders, and the picture which we have from this picture on the screen is usually what we are used to when we talk about the Middle East. This is, I think, a wrong presentation or false presentation of the good place, and sheer, I wouldn't say lie, but something which definitely deceives you. Usually. First of all, this picture creates the impression that every country is different. I'm not saying that they are all the same, but distinguished from each other, has its own awareness of nationalism. Egypt is Egyptian, Libya is Libyan, everybody in Libya is Libyan, in his awareness. And everybody in Algeria is Algerian, everybody in Iraq is Iraqi above everything. In Syria, everybody is Syrian before anything else, and so forth. And because this is more or less the situation in the European Union, in other parts of the world. This is, in the good case, far from reality. Why? First of all, the borders were marked, usually by rulers, not by the local people, but by the Western colonialism. Definitely you can see borders like rulers in the middle of the desert, because this whole thing is one big desert, which starts from Morocco in the east, goes to Algeria in the west, goes to Algeria, Mali, please the northern parts, Niger, Libya, Tunisia, Egypt, most parts, Chad, Sudan, the northern parts, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, into Iran, and the Emirates also. This in Somalia. This is a giant desert, which you don't see any natural borders, which were used as the borders for the states, because the states were marked by the colonialism, definitely, or usually, according to the interests of the West, not the interests of the local people. In many cases, lines of states combined groups which never in history lived in peace with each other, or cut groups in the middle only because it was convenient to mark a line. more or less, I think, the same problems were in Africa as well. In some cases, there is a national awareness. I specify Egypt in this case, mainly, and maybe Tunisia to some extent, but I'm talking about generally speaking. These countries are still viewed by most of their inhabitants as states which the colonialism marked. That's why the state is illegitimate to begin with, and now we have to live with each other or to die with each other. The real maps are totally different. This is the real map of Iraq, for example, because this map shows the tribes of Iraq. In this country, if I talk about tribes, this is a theory, because there are no tribes in Belgium. There are the two ethnic groups, and that's it. I don't remember any tribes mentioned in this place. Three. Okay. Okay. But when I come to Iraq, this is the real map of Iraq. Different tribes, and there are other excess of division, but this is the main, and I would say this is the cornerstone. The tribalism is the cornerstone of the culture of the Middle East. And again, I exclude Egypt, for example, and more or less Tunisia, and the Emirates are in another place. But generally speaking, this is the picture also in Libya. If you talk about the tribes of Libya, which is an old map which I found, but if we go back to Iraq, you can very easily see that most of the tribes are on the eastern part of the country, not in the west. The reason is because of there is water. Because in the desert you need water, otherwise you die. This is the course of the Euphrates, more or less. This is the course of the Dijla, the Tigris, which unite more or less in this point and go down to the Persian Gulf as the Shatt al-Arab, the united river. And between them, there are Iraq, means veins. In Arabic, Iraq means veins, means channels, canals of water, which combine the two rivers, so you can live either near a river or near the canal, and you have constant supply of water, because Iraq has almost no rain through the year. You know, when I came from Amsterdam this morning to here, the whole way is green. Cows are eating non-stop if they want. Sheep. This is not the situation in the Middle East. I once took a flight from Amsterdam to South Africa, to Johannesburg. We crossed the coast more or less this point, and it went down here. It took like 3 hours for the jumbo, since it crossed the coastline, until I saw the first tree. And this was the width of the Sahara. If you take it to the long dimension, it will be 7 hours of a jumbo, means more or less 7,000 kilometers. And in the desert, you have to survive. And if you have a spring or a well or a ditch with some water, you will fight in order to save it, in order to keep it, in order to remain there, because there are other groups. It's what shaped the Middle East. And there, in this place, if you fail in the first battle, this is your last battle. And if you shoot the second, you don't shoot anymore. So if you go to sleep, you sleep with your hand either on your sword or on your Kalashnikov, because you want to be the first to shoot. Because otherwise, you're out, either from life or from your source of water, which is more or less the same. So the struggle over the water actually shaped the culture of the Middle East. This is why violence is so immediate tool to use in every struggle in this region, far away as it could be from European culture. Because here you don't fight on water, Because every yard which you go, you'll cross a river or another canal, and so why fight? Take your part, I take my part, and that's it. But no, this is not the situation in the Middle East. This is why tribalism is so important, because the tribe means the brothers, and then the cousins, and the second cousins, the next generation. And if you live for 8 generations, you are really a tribe. This is the most cohesive group which can fight together. That's why they have different dialects, tribes, different mindset, different rules, different clothing in some cases. They have their areas, they have their leadership, they have their interests, and you don't mess with them. Because they are a consolidated group which are a fighting militia, as we see very well today in Libya. Unfortunately, this country, after Gaddafi was ousted, and killed later, today the tribes actually, which are militias, are fighting each other. And this is the source of all the problems in Libya. Iraq, the same thing. They what underlies many of the feuds in Iraq, the failure of the government to function comes out from the fact that the politicians in Iraq usually represents their tribe, either Samurai or others, because they are, first of all, loyal to the tribe before they are loyal to the country, to the state. You marry your daughter to your tribe's man, because you don't give your daughter to another tribe, because they will humiliate her. And the rules of the tribe are much more important than the rules of the country, because let's say, if your, let's say, cousin in the tribe killed somebody by a road accident, you will hide him, because this is the rule of the tribe. But the state will see you as somebody who is a partner in crime. If you hide a killer, you are a partner in crime. But according to the tribe, you are a hero, because you did what you should do. How can you reconcile between these two sets of laws, the tribe law and the state law? And if you, let's say, 24-year-old daughter allows herself too much with boys, according to the state law, she is a free woman. She can do whatever she likes, whenever she likes, because she is a grown-up. But according to the tribe law, she brings shame on the family, on the tribe, and her fate is one, to be shot by hand, Asl al-Ar, as it is in Arabic, to wash the shame with the blood which will come from her vein. So how can you bridge between the law of the tribe, which sees her as a criminal, and the law of the state, which gives her a freedom, especially in modern states? This is why there is always a tension between tribalism and the statism or etatism, or the culture of the state. Unfortunately, tribalism is still alive and kicking, and I would even say alive and killing in some places in the Middle East, especially when you come to Iraq, Libya, and some other places which function the same way. You cannot ignore it, you cannot shove it under the rug. Another problem in Iraq, if we go, that Iraq is divided above the tribes to 4 ethnic groups. We have the Kurds. In this part, like, there are several tribes who are Kurds, speak Kurdish. There are Arabs, of course, most of the country are Arabs. There are Turkmens, which speak Turkish. And there are some Persians, also some Persian tribes which moved to the west, and they are still in Iraq. But since nobody marries them, they still speak Persian, just like the Turkmens who still speak in Turkish, and the Kurds who speak in Kurdish, and the Arabs, of course, speak Arabic. So 4 ethnic groups divided to 70-something tribes. There are some 10 religions only in Iraq. Muslims, Christians, there are some Jews still, Sabais and Yazidis, who we heard about recently, and Baha'is, and Mandays, and Zoroastrians, and there are some more, which you might have not heard about them yet, because they are not massacred by the IS, the Islamic State, yet. When they will, you will hear about them, just like the Yazidis. Who knew about the Yazidis? Who heard about the Yazidis 2 months ago, or until 2 months ago. Okay, so when atrocities happen, nobody, the press discovers the reality. But in Iraq, I can give you the list of all the religions. Mandays and Sabais, when they will be slaughtered or massacred by the IS, you will hear about them more. So many of those religions are viewed, especially by extremist Muslims, as infidels, just like the Yazidis, who have the choice either to convert to Islam or to face the reality of living under their Islamic ways of how they want to subjugate everybody, either to slaughter people or to put a jizya, means the skull tax, on them, which they should pay when they are humiliated, as it's stated in the Quran. So this is the religious divide of Iraq, which people are not always aware of. And under this division of religion, you have the division to sects. The Islamic communities are divided to Shi'i and Sunni and Sufi and other parts of the Islamic, I would say, court. The Christians, there were 8 different Christian denominations in Iraq. 2 of them ran away totally, and the others are partially. Today, the number of Christians in Iraq is something like 1/3 compared to the number which they were under Saddam. So with the years since 2003, Christians definitely flee out of Iraq because of the situation. And the Mandays also are divided and so forth. So Iraq actually suffers from all the 4 axes of division which occur in the Middle East. The ethnic one, Kurds, Arabs, Turkmens, Persians. The tribal one, the one on the map. The religious one, Muslims, Christians, and so forth. And sectarian one, which is Shi'i, Sunnis, and so forth. And the British Empire, when they draw the borders of Iraq, like 90 years ago, they hope that one day will come and all those different tribes and ethnic groups and religions and sects will sit one day around one fire and sing Kumbaya together. So far it never happened. Today it doesn't happen. And I tend to doubt that it will ever happen. The same situation you can find in Syria, but there it's even worse because the government is not about Muslims. The Alawis are viewed as Shia idol worshippers. I can show you one of the shrines which I took, a picture which I took. This is the shrine of an Alawi village in Israel, the village of Rajar. We have only one village of Alawis. I went there in a day of rainy day. You can see here the water, because nobody was out in the street, so I could take this picture, because they definitely do not like people to come and to take picture of this place. Because, if you can see very clearly, you can see these 2 doves on the column. And they bow to these doves. In Islam, it says Shia, idol worshipping. Here, you can see behind the white gate, the gate-shaped thing, you can see here this vitrine, this one, behind it. In this vitrine, they have an image, not an image, a doll, statue of Mother Mary, like 40 centimeters, and they worship her as a goddess. Okay? So when Muslims see this thing, they know who they are and what they are. And Assad family is part of this sect. So according to at least the extremist way of how to interpret Islam, these Alawis, not only they do not have the right to rule because they are a minority, there is a big question if they at all have the right to live being idol worshippers, as they are, mushrikun, as they say in Arabic, which is their worst. So this is actually the biggest problem of the regime in Syria. Not because they are a minority, but they are a minority who should be put in front of a choice, whether to convert to Islam or to lose life. So this is why the situation in Syria is so dire as it is. So when you go to other Arab countries, and I won't prolong about this, you see both problems. One is that the state as a framework is viewed by most of the populations as illegitimate, and the regime is illegitimate because it is always a minority which does not represent the majority of the people. In Iraq of Saddam, it was the one tribe, the Dulaimi, the Saddam's tribe, who ruled over all the others, and it was a Sunni, from the Sunni minority of Iraq. In Syria, it's the Alawis. In Jordan, it's the Hashemite house, Hashemite family, who were expelled by the Saudis in the 20s of the last century, and the British gave them the emirate, it was the Jordan Emirate which later became the kingdom. And they are not, as they say in Arabic, mush minna, not from us. So who gave them the legitimacy to rule us? This is something which is unacceptable. In Libya, another tribal society, the Gaddafi tribe, it's not the name. Gaddafi is only the adjective. The real name of the tribe of Gaddafi is Gaddafi Dam, the one who sheds blood. And according to all the stories in Libya, this name was justified. The tribe earned its name for good reasons. And he was vicious, the way he controlled Libya. I won't elaborate on what methods he used in order to take care of his opponents, but definitely he was illegitimate, totally. Libya, by the way, is also a conglomerate of tribes and ethnic groups, Berbers and others. So this Sudan, before the division of Sudan, was 600 tribes. So I would say that all these countries, the main failure is to settle in the hearts of the people and to replace the traditional loyalty of the people from being loyal to the tribe or the ethnic group or the religious group or the sectarian group to be loyal to the state, to be Iraqis, to be Syrians, because Syria is also fragmented between Kurds and Arabs, and religiously between Muslims and Christians and Alawis and Druze, and every axis of division occurs also in Syria as well. So this failure actually is, I would say, the preamble to what happens today in the Middle East when these things come out and people want their freedom from the minorities which oppress them for who knows how many years. Two countries are different from this issue. This is Egypt and Tunisia. More or less the same process, because in these countries there was a big immigration from the countryside to the cities. In Tunisia, it was because of, I would say, a deliberate neglect of like 50 years of two presidents, Bourguiba and Ben Ali, who neglected the countryside and invested only or mainly in the cities. Education, industrialization, infrastructure. So all these youngsters from the rural areas and the desert, when they saw the flourishing and the glamorous cities, they just moved to the cities. So they actually brought all the youngsters and the new generation to the cities, and the tribes actually were weakened by these governments. And the city is a city of individuals, more or less like in the West, a city of individuals who live out from the framework of the family or the clan. The same process happened in Egypt, but because of different things, mainly because of the high dam, which was built during the 50s, which actually destroyed the traditional agriculture of Egypt, which was based on floods twice a year from the Nile, which gave free water and free fertilizers to the peasants of the countryside, and they could turn Egypt into the barn of the Middle East as it was for thousands of years. But with the building of the Aswan Dam, it actually stopped, and now people had to start buying, although they got in the agrarian reform made by Gamal Abdel Nasser, they got free land, but they didn't have the money to buy water and to buy fertilizers, because it's a desert. Without fertilizers, you can do anything with it. So after 2-3 years, when they saw that they cannot have anything out of the ground, they just moved either to Cairo, to Alexandria, to Qumran, to Beirut, to Asyut, or to Europe, or to America. And this way also, the tribes or the clans of the countryside lost much of their power, and the Egyptian politics is actually made of individuals who unite, just like in European cities, on the profession, the union of the lawyers, and the union of the merchants, and the union of the guilds, I would say, and ideological groupings like in the Middle East, the club of the nationalists or the Nazarists, the club of the socialists or the Baathists in other places, or the Islamists or the others, the club of those who are not connected by family but by their ideology, which is more or less like Western way how to combine organizations and later political I would say groups which will compete each other on the government. So this is why Egypt and Tunisia are much more like European countries in this respect. And this is why when the Arab Spring started in late 2010, Ben Ali in Tunisia and Mubarak in Egypt sustained for less than a month. Right? Because whoever is behind them are politicians. And politicians will support you only as long as you deliver. Once they saw that they don't deliver, they left them. Just like politicians everywhere in the world. But in Yemen, in Libya, in Syria, being tribal societies, the tribe which controls the country holds and kills. We saw it in Yemen, because the Ali Abdullah Saleh's tribe are actually implemented in many other organizations. Gaddafi gave a big fight until NATO actually destroyed his army. And Hafez Assad in Syria, he still kills his people, because his brother is the commander of the army, Maher al-Assad. His brother-in-law, Asaf Shaukat, was the commander of the intelligence, of the Mukhabarat, until he was blown up. And his uncle is the Minister of Finance, Minister of Corruption. So the family actually controls the country, and the family does not betray each other. Unlike what happened in Egypt and in Tunisia, where the presidents held less, I think Mubarak even less than 3 weeks between January 25 of 2011 and February 11, when he was forced to leave by Tantawi. So this is when a political group controls the country, so politicians would hold you only as long as you are strong. While when you lose your strength, they leave you. When a tribe controls the country, the tribe fights. So this is the difference between Syria, Yemen, Libya on one side, and Egypt and Tunisia on the other side, when it comes to the changes of the beginning of what's called then the Arab Spring. Just in a little note, there is another group of states in the Middle East, which is the Gulf Emirates. I'm talking about Kuwait, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, the 7 Emirates, and I exclude Bahrain. These states are stable, legitimate, and free media, and as if they are from another planet. How can this be described? Somebody would say the oil and the wealth.
بحرين talking about Bahrain?
I exclude Bahrain.
Yes.
I'm talking about Kuwait, Qatar, and the 7 Arab Emirates, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Fujairah, Ras Al Khaimah, those.
They are stable?
Much more than Iraq and Syria. Okay. Now, some would suggest that the reason is the wealth and the oil. But this is wrong. Dubai has no oil and no gas. And it's a very stable and very rich country. And on the other side, Iraq has much oil, and Libya has much oil, and so does Yemen and Sudan. And it did not contribute to stability, neither to Iraq nor to Libya, which are rich with oil and gas. So what is the source of wealth in the Gulf, if not the oil? Stability. When you have stability, you can take advantage of the oil. When you don't have stability, like in Iraq, oil does not contribute to stability, just like in Libya. Now, what makes the stability in the Gulf Emirates? The fact that every one of them is one single tribe. Al-Sabah in Kuwait, they are the ruling, the citizens. I'm not talking about Western businessmen who live there for business. They don't have anything with politics, so I don't count them as part of the ruling elite or the elite of the country. Qatar is the Al Thani tribe. Abu Dhabi, Al Nahyan. Al is tribe. Al Nahyan. So whenever you have one tribe which rules the place, the country is, or the state is illegitimate, the leadership of the tribe, which is the leadership of the country, is legitimate. So why fight? So they can cooperate with each other in order to turn the oil into wealth. In Iraq, in Libya, people fight each other on the oil and other resources. So that's why they're failing states, both in Iraq and Libya. If you want, Sudan as well. Yemen, not far from this. So stability, which is based on sociology, the social stability is the basis. On this you have political stability, which functions. And on this you can build skyscrapers with helicopter pads on them because of the wealth. In Iraq, the society is fragmented and shaky. The political arena cannot function. Look at al-Maliki, how he failed in facing the IS, or then called ISIS, because who wants to fight for such a prime minister who is illegitimate? And their economy is a failure, also in Iraq. Okay, so when you have, first of all, to see the society before everything else, because everything else is this result of what happens in the society. If political arena doesn't function, if the economy fails, it doesn't go otherwise. It doesn't start with the economy. Economy is the victim, or the result of what happens in the echelons of the society. And this is why learning about the societies of these countries is way much more important than learning about the politics or the economy. Start with the society, because the problems come from below, not from above. Israel, as a modern state, has to live in such a turbulent area, because Israel, or at least we Jews who came to Israel, back to Israel, to our forefathers' land, we are not going to leave our land. Our neighbors, it's hard for them to accept us. States made peace with us, Egypt and Jordan, and we highly appreciate it. By the way, yesterday was the 36th anniversary of the signing of the Camp David Accords between the late President Muhammad Anwar al-Sadat and late Menachem Begin, the Prime Minister of Israel. I think it was yesterday, it was the 36th, and definitely Egypt, I believe, benefited from this peace, because otherwise it would have had to finance constant war, which costs much money these days. And of course, when this situation, the economic situation, is so shaky as it is rather hard to fight for a long time. Also in Israel, we definitely benefit from the peace. The same is about Jordan, the peace on the other side with the Kingdom of Jordan. But I must give here a little comment. When I relate to this peace, we cannot escape the fact that the peace is between the governments of these two countries and Israel. Unfortunately, too many people in the street, both in Egypt and in Jordan, would not sign it. To begin with, in 78, definitely not now. And the question is why? It's a long question to answer. But definitely, we do see the problems both in Jordan and in Egypt when it comes to how warm this peace is. Yet, Israel prefers a cold peace on every hot or warm war. Even a cold peace is better than the worst peace is better than the best war. Okay? So that's why we try to sustain this peace as much as we can, although we have some problems, definitely from Sinai, this area, which during the last few years became a hub for jihadists, which made problems to Egypt and to Israel as well. And there are all kinds of rumors about cooperation between Egypt and Israel about how to deal with them. And I am not sure that I would like to elaborate on this cooperation. And definitely in Jordan the situation is even worse, because the peace is viewed as a peace between the Hashemite kingdom, means the ruling family, and Israel. The majority of the Jordanians, who define themselves as Palestinians, are not part of it. And we see it on many levels of cooperation, which does not exist. On academic level, on art level, professional level, journalism level, which in most cases are run by Palestinians in Jordan, and this is why they don't view this peace as legitimate. They always tell me, if I try to approach them, hey, you have a peace with the king, go to him, we are not part of it. We are not doing anything against it, but we are not willing to be part of it. Go deal with him, it's not us. I would say rebels who are either Jabhat al-Nusra, or the Nusra Front, or Al-Qaeda-like organizations like Sham, or the IS. You know, it's not anymore ISIS, not anymore the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, or Sham. They omitted the Iraq and Syria since Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi announced himself to be the caliph. So now he thinks, or he declares, that he is the caliph of all the Muslims in the world, start from Indonesia in the east, all the way to Los Angeles in the west, in the long way. So he considers himself. So he omitted from the ISIS, the second IS means the Iraq and the Sham, or Iraq and Syria, or as some say Iraq and the Levant. It's not anymore. It's the IS, the Islamic State, or the Khilafah State. So the Khilafah State, or the Islamic State, also already rules like a third of Syria and a third of Iraq, and they actually erased the borders which were marked by Sykes and Picot in the 20s of the last century. They don't view the borders as legitimate, and they are committed to spread their hegemony over Lebanon in order to get rid of Hezbollah, who are Shiites, and Shiites in their view are apostates, and of course Israel, as we Jews have no right to live in this place as independent and sovereign country. And of course all the regimes should be wiped out because they are all collaborators of the West, those who came from the tent of the Brits, and they have to spread their regime all over this region and later all other parts of the world. This is actually what they say. They of course use, as you might have seen, methods which are totally unacceptable, like beheadings and lashing people in the streets and cutting hands of thieves and so forth. And today there are all kinds of meetings in Paris. There was recently and other meetings of what to do with this, whether to shape a new force to fight, just as was in Afghanistan in the end of 2001, beginning of 2002, against Al-Qaeda. So maybe we are today again in the same movie, watching the same movie which we watched with Al-Qaeda of 14 years ago or 13 and a half years ago. Now we are seeing it in this area, but you have to be very careful. We already heard voices of another Islamic State in Nigeria by the Boko Haram organization. We heard a bay'ah, allegiance, pledge of allegiance to the Islamic State from Sinai, Ansar Bait al-Maqdis, who are operating in Sinai. We heard from some group in Lebanon as well, and this might become a fashion to pledge allegiance to this new Islamic State. And once somebody pledges allegiance to this state, he might operate according to the modus operandi of this state wherever he lives, either in Sinai or in Lebanon or in Nigeria or in other places in the world as well. Israel has to survive in this region. Today there are all kinds of new groupings in the Middle East, which we see Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, the Palestinian Authority are uniting against this Islamic State, and Israel might become in a way or another part of this new constellation, I would say, of the Middle East. Turkey appears as a state which protects the Muslim Brotherhood organizations in Egypt and other countries as well. Unfortunately, Turkey here is facing the other coalition of Egypt, Saudi Arabia and others. Qatar tries to change its support to the Muslim Brotherhood organizations, which bred many of the jihadi organizations as well. And Israel just sees around it a very rapidly changing Middle East. And now the question is what to do with this. Because just imagine if Israel made peace with Assad 5 or 6 years ago because of some Israelis who wanted to give up on the Golan Heights and to allow Assad to go all the way to overlook Israel. What would happen today when Jabhat al-Nusra would overlook Tiberias and large parts of Israel? We would have to face them when they are actually can target large parts of Israel, or at least the Israel north, from the Golan Heights. So there are those Israelis who called upon Israel to give up on the Golan to Assad. Today, you don't hear them anymore because they understand today what a mistake it would have been then, because Jabhat al-Nusra would definitely not honor the peace which Assad might have signed with Israel, because they don't see Israel at all as a legitimate country. So they definitely would not honor this peace. So we have to be very careful before we sign any peace, because the dunes of the Middle East are moving according to the wind. And those winds, in many cases, are unpredictable. I think I'll stop here to open the floor for questions.
You said that the stability of a country is very much related to the stability and the coherence of the society. We see that Israel is becoming less and less coherent within itself. Do you see that as an issue? And
before I forget, I'll answer. Look, Israel, we Jews came back to our country from all over the world as individuals, not as clans, not as tribes, as individuals. You can very easily see what happens in the Israeli society. You hear about these things in the media, but look at wedding patterns, because wedding is actually the truth. The truth. You can very easily see that after 3 generations in Israel, boys and girls are marrying each other totally regardless, or most cases regardless, of what or where the place which their grandfather or grandmother came from. Look, I can give you my experience in this. I have 2 daughters and 3 sons. I was born, my parents came from Poland in the 30s. My wife was born in the United States of America. Her father is from Leipzig in Germany, and her mother is from a family which originally came from Russia. So definitely we are from Western societies. Our first daughter is married to a boy whose mother was born in Herat in Afghanistan, and his father in Bukhara in Tajikistan, I think.
Yeah, Tajikistan.
Bukhara, Tajikistan, all the way to the east. Totally different culture. The other daughter is married to a boy whose mother from Tunisia, from Tunis, and his father is from Marrakesh, from Morocco, Islamic societies. Neither my daughters nor those boys held at home these issues, because the biggest success of the Zionist organization was not only to take the Jews out of exile, it was also to take exile out of the Jews. And this is a great success. It's unprecedented. Within 2 or 3 generations, which people changed totally their patterns of wedding, which is the core issue. By the way, the Russian group, which came to Israel after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the beginnings of the 90s, are totally different today in something different, in the birth rate. When they came to Israel, the birth rate was 1.2 children per family. Today they are at 3. The same group, the same people, changed dramatically the pattern of childbirth, which is a big difference from any. So definitely Israel is something which, is on the make. Of course, we're different because we are a democratic society. We have the religious, we have the non-religious, we have the Arabs in Israel. 20% of the Arabs in Israel, of the Israeli society, are Arabs. Most of them are Muslims. You don't hear about them because they live in a democratic country. They enjoy. I would say that there are all kinds of marginalization, like in every society. All kinds of sectors are in the margin, and other sectors are in the center. This in every country in the world you find. So definitely, but you don't see the atrocities which you see in the Arab world. We don't slaughter them, as it happens in Syria. We don't kill them in big numbers as happened in Iraq, by Muslims, by the Islamic State. Okay, so they live in Israel as a minority, yet I think that from all the options in the Middle East, they prefer Israel. Although Israel is not their dream of fulfilled. Okay? So, definitely Israel is a democratic state. It has a democratic game. It is not part of this mayhem which we see around us, definitely.
Yeah.
The second.
Which leads me to the second question. You said you prefer a cold peace over
Warm war.
a warm war.
I would say bad peace,
Bad
on a
peace,
good war.
a good war. How do you deal with those around you who prefer a hot war instead of a cold peace?
Well, since the
You
Middle
said,
East,
you know, life, we value life.
Right.
If you are faced with people who value something else
Death.
more than life,
Yeah.
how can you deal with them?
Look, the Middle East is not a place of hugs and kisses. Peace in the Middle East is given to the invincible. The one who convinces his foes that for their good they should leave him alone. This is regularly a peace in the Middle East. It's not a matter of weddings and kisses and so forth. It's a peace which is based on deterrence. So far, Israel succeeds to deter its enemies until they think that they can defeat Israel. So Israel has to again deter them in another war until they find another way how they think that they can defeat us. So we have to again convince them that we are still can fight. Okay, unfortunately it happens every couple of years, and this is why we have to be very alert. We have to listen, we have to look, and we have to be very careful before we give assets like areas, and we allow, to establish. Look, everybody talk about a Palestinian state, which many Israelis also back, and think this is an appropriate thing to do. Yet nobody can assure that another Palestinian state in the West Bank, or so-called West Bank, will never happen, will never turn into another Hamas state. Either by elections, as already happened in January 2006, when Hamas won the majority of the Palestinian Legislative Council, or by coup d'etat, as already happened in Gaza in June of 2007. Is there anybody in the world who can assure that if we go to sleep with the PLO, we're not going to wake up in the morning with Hamas in bed? Nobody in the world can assure it. So today, many in Israel, even from the Israeli left, they are very careful before they allow another Palestinian state to emerge after what we have from Gaza, which is a Palestinian state. Okay, small, but still, it's a Palestinian state. So who can make sure that the West Bank will not turn to the same thing? Well, there is a solution which I came out with, and there are some who think I can show you if there is the time. It is the Palestinian Emirate solution. Here is Gaza, by the way. I didn't mark Gaza because this is the West Bank, and this is the width of Israel. What happens is, again, society. The cities are very tribal societies. The Hebron city has 5 tribes which live very nicely together. The Jabrin, Kawasmi, Abusnena, Natche, and Tamimi. The Jericho are the Arikat. Ramallah is the Baruthi and Tawil, 2 tribes. Nablus are the Masri, Tukan, and Shaka. If you tell me the name of somebody's family name, I'll tell you where he lives, according to the tribe. So it's in Jenin, Tulkan, and Kalkilia. Israel has, or must, or should, establish 7 emirates to emulate the emirate paradigm from the Gulf, based on the clans. While Israel should forever remain in the rural areas, Israel should offer Israeli citizenship to the villagers. You cannot force them, but Israel can offer them to become Israeli citizens, just like the Arabs in the Galilee in the north or in the south, just to make sure that we don't have another Hamastan which overlooks 70% of the Israeli society in the range of light weapons. Because if this becomes another Palestinian state, it will turn into another Hamastan, no doubt. Especially if we take seriously the poll which was made like a month ago by one of the pollsters in Ramallah, who showed very clearly that the population in the West Bank will vote for Hamas if they have a state. So
Just as they did in Gaza.
Gaza was taken by force. In the West Bank, they will win just as they won in 2006, the elections. I'm not sure that Belgium would allow a jihadi terrorist state being established on its borders, especially when the width of Belgium is like 10 miles between this terrorist state and the sea, which is here. So this is the situation today. Less and less Israelis, even from the left, do support the idea of another Palestinian state. And I think that this is the only solution, which is based on sociology rather on dreams or political issues, which failed so far.
I see in your bio that you were in this Unit 8200. There was a long article in today's New York Times about 8200, and I wanted to ask if you had a view on it, but more importantly, what's your view of the relationship at the moment between the United States and Israel, which seems to be in some turmoil?
Look, when you go to the Israeli-American relations, you can see definitely good cooperation in intelligence and in other areas. There are some disputes between all kinds of administrations, not only between the Obama administration, it was already the Bush administration, Clinton, and many others, about how to view the Middle East. I think that Israel understands much better the Middle East than any American administration. And you know what? I'll give you a good example from which I'm allowed to speak about because it was published. The manager of the office of the late Yitzhak Rabin in the beginning of the 90s was a man named Eitan Haber.
A journalist.
Yes, he was a journalist, but he became the manager of the office of the late Yitzhak Rabin. One day, James Baker, who was then the Secretary of State, came to meet Rabin. And Rabin got stuck in a traffic jam. And he came late to his office to meet James Baker. So Eitan Haber, the manager, had like 10 minutes of good time with a chat with James Baker. They talked about something which I don't know what about. So Eitan Haber told James Baker, I think that you are wrong in this. So James Baker turned to Eitan Haber, patted him on the back and said, Eitan, America is right even if America is wrong. Don't laugh. Because if this is the mindset in Washington, D.C., God help America. You cannot, in my humble view, you cannot think that you are right if you are wrong. Even if you have all the might in the world, the American power, army, money. If you are wrong, you are wrong. And I'm afraid that this mindset of America is right, even if America is wrong, remained after James Baker in Washington, D.C. So in some cases, when we think that we are right and Americans are wrong, we stand in front of the Americans and tell them what we think about this. Because we cannot allow ourselves make any mistake. Because the first war which Israel will lose will be its last. We don't have the luxury of failing. Okay? We are there for, we will try, we want to be there forever. American administration comes for 4 years, maybe for another 4 years. Okay, we are committed to the continuation of our nation, and our state, and our country. So when it comes to dispute and differences between us and the administration, yes, we tell them what we think. And if they are mistaken, we will not follow them. Or we try not to follow them. So this is the difference between how Israelis think about the Middle East and some American administrations, and I specifically say it in plural, because it's not always on the Democratic side of the aisle, it also on the Republican side. And I don't make any difference between this or that administration in this regard, because mistakes are being done by both sides of the American administrations regarding the Middle East. I think I answered this question. And the other one?
Iran.
Iran tries, the Iranian regime, I would say, tries to take advantage of the situation when the whole world is frightened by the Islamic State, which emerged here. The Western world does not need another war in addition to what seems to be a beginning of a war in the eastern side of the Ukraine. And it definitely has to do with this. We don't need another war. Many places say we don't need another problem now, to start now. Boots on the ground, especially. Maybe some things on the air. People in the West expect that locals will do what they can against this Islamic State. They might be supported, armed, and so forth by the West. But America and many other, I think NATO as well, would not like to see, again, boots on the ground after what happened in Afghanistan and in Iraq. Iran is, I would say, natural candidate to do the job, if not fully, partially. Because Iran are Shiites, they are Sunnis, Iran sees it as a threat, and for a reason, and definitely Iran can do the job. So if we support Iran, if we help Iran, if we are with Iran, the Iranians will rid us of the problem named the Islamic State. If this means that we loosen the grip of the sanctions from the Iranian neck because of this, and they can go forward in their nuclear program, we might tolerate it. Because the nuclear program of Iran is today in the margin, while the problem, which is the center of the interest, of the world interest, is the Islamic State. And I think in America they say, if you need a thief, you take him down from the rope. Is there such something, I think, in American?
There is in Yiddish.
Maybe. It is in Yiddish. No, I think if you catch somebody who stole a kettle, if you need him, you just take him out of the rope. No, it's not only in Yiddish. So, I don't know exactly that. But now, if the world needs Iran, the world might turn a blind eye to the nuclear weapon, to the nuclear program of Iran, the military program, which, in my view, is a bigger problem, a bigger threat than the Islamic State. Why? You have to look at the ways of how this Islamic State expanded itself. It went mostly to deserted areas, or areas with very scarce population. Where did it stop? In the outskirts of Baghdad. Why? Because Baghdad has 4 million people, Shi'i population, organized, armed, trained, waiting for the IS to come. And those jihadists of the IS know exactly what will happen to them if they go to Baghdad. So they decided not to be suicidal, and they stopped like 12 or 10 kilometers from Baghdad. Okay? So this is the way how to face them. To be prepared. To have an army like the Peshmerga of the Kurds, or like others, like Israel, who is prepared, yes, getting prepared. Because if Jabhat al-Nusra in Syria will pledge allegiance again to the Islamic State, as they did already in June, for 2 weeks, they were part of the Islamic State, until they left them for no matter reason. But they are very close to each other ideologically. Modus operandi might differ between Jabhat al-Nusra in Syria and the IS. But who knows? Who has the guarantee that they will not unite again, as they already were united? So Israel will face, on the Golan, the Islamic State. So definitely, they know what will happen to them if they try to mess with us. Because we will show them. What we know is that we show once in a while, either to Hamas or to others, who try to get rid of us. Okay, so deterrence is the way how to face them. And in my view, this Islamic State will remain for a long time. If you don't put boots on the ground, you cannot get rid of them. There's no way to get rid of them from the air. As much as I respect the air forces and the air raids and so forth, yet you cannot get rid of such an organization by using only air forces, even if it's in plural. This is my humble view, but who knows? Yes, sir.
This is Imran from Awaz Multimedia Group. I want to bring you, first of all, so many thanks for your very informative lecture and briefing. About Syria, when the movement starts against Bashar.
March 11.
Yes. Then Israel, Saudi Arabia, Western world, they were supporting that movement. Now, when it expands, and then all these powers are against that movement. I want to know that who entered that militants or jihadis, we can say, in this movement against Bashar, and is ISIS is a tool to change the geographical situation in Middle East? And is there any Pakistani Taliban or training camps involved in this movement somewhere?
The process was started definitely with local people, like in Daraa, Idlib, who demonstrated for I wouldn't even say freedom, for better governance, better political behavior of the government, less mukhabarat, misintelligence, grip on their necks, better economy, and even better freedom of speech. Not total freedom of speech, but they wanted to have the situation better. The regime answered with violence, great violence. Already then, I would say, already in May 11, people in the streets heard people who shoot them speaking in Lebanese dialect, means people from Hezbollah who came as snipers, who stood on the roofs. Some of them were caught already in those days. So the regime answered with very, very violent answer, and this brought the people to retaliate in violent way. And so the regime became more violent. So they became more violent. This is how it escalated. The violence escalated definitely through 2011. Then people started to come to support them, to help them from Jordan. By the way, the southern part of Syria, where Daraa is in this place, is more or less the same tribes of northern Jordan. Again, the border cut some tribes to parts which are in Syria, part in Jordan. And when those in Jordan heard that their brothers, cousins, are being shot dead in Syria, they ran to support them. Although they live in Jordan, those live in Syria, who care less? They couldn't care less about the country. They said it's brothers, cousins. So they went to support them, to help them with guns and ammunition. So this is the first I would say, wave of foreigners who came into Syria. The second wave started coming from Turkey, because, as you know, Erdogan is a Sunni Islamist. He wouldn't like to see Alawis, who are idol worshippers, killing Sunni Muslims, as they did in Halab. Syria escalated. You saw more and more jihadists coming to support both, because the Shiis from Iraq came to support the regime. Hezbollah came to support the regime. Others came from many other parts of the world, from the Emirates, from Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia definitely sponsored this movement. Qatar did, and private people from the Emirates. So much money came from the Gulf was poured into Syria to buy or to purchase weapons and communications to enable them have better fight. So with the time, we saw organization. The Islamic State of Iraq, which was established in 2004 by Abu Mus'ab al-Zarqawi as a long hand of Al-Qaeda, started to operate in Syria in 2013 as an organization. Then later he declared himself not to be only the Islamic State of Iraq, but to be the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria and the Sham, means the Levant. And then we saw what we see today. It was a gradual process, which, like every month, you saw more and more elements coming in, and the more jihadi type is taking over from the national, local Syrians. So this was the process. And unfortunately today, Syria is the hub, I would say the magnet, for many of those jihadists who come with experience from Afghanistan, from Sinai, from Libya. You know, Libya is a storage of weapons, of Gaddafi on one side, and what the Qatar bought the rebels in 2011. Today, those weapons are being exported by Libyans to Gaza and to Syria through Tripoli in Lebanon. So definitely, this is what happens in Syria. But for this, AIPA will have to bring me again, only for Syria, because Syria is a very big problem, especially when it comes to refugees. Because millions of Syrians, I think this is the biggest atrocity since the Second World War. What happens today in Syria. Millions of refugees inside Syria and outside from Syria. In Jordan, they have like 1 million, only Syrian refugees. In Lebanon, in Iraq, in Turkey, definitely. And they come to Europe every night with ships, small ships, and some of them sink, unfortunately, in the Mediterranean. And this problem of Syria is being exported. And who knows about those, how many of them carry the resentment and the anger against the West, who doesn't help them so far in a significant way. What will they do when they come to Europe? I have no idea, but this might be a danger.
Just an information and a question. Yesterday, from UN information, there was a temporary mechanism between Palestine and Israel on Gaza reconstruction. I think you are informed about this.
There is much talking about this.
Yes. How do you, what do you think about this temporary mechanism? This is the question. And the other question, do you think that, I know Israel is an unsafe situation because the political around Israel is always unsafe for Israel. But could you please tell me that it is possible during this mechanism, this new mechanism, is it possible to resolve the problem of peace by developed cooperation, for example, like here in Europe? Is it possible? Please, is it possible?
Yeah. First of all, regarding what's supposed to be in Gaza, I do hope that the world will succeed to convince Hamas that it's enough for fights and the wars against Israel, and it's time to reconstruct Gaza and to bring good life to the people in Gaza. They deserve to have good life, normal life, peaceful life, prosperity life. They deserve it like everyone in the world. The problem is that if I take the history of Gaza, I have some doubts. Because as you might remember, we had the former rounds of violence. We had it in the beginning of 2009 and again in 2012. The demolished houses from those rounds were not rebuilt. Why? Hamas want to keep them destroyed, to bring politicians, to bring donors, to bring journalists, to show them what Israel did. They need it destroyed to blackmail the world, unfortunately. I highly doubt if they will rebuild the destructions of now, because this is a very good source of money which will be funneled to them, to their pockets forever. This is how it works. If they cared about the people in Gaza, they would rebuild the former destruction, but they couldn't care less. I give you a good example. During the 90s, Israel found a gas field in the Mediterranean, right offshore from Gaza, some kilometers from Gaza. In 1998, the then Israeli Prime Minister, Ehud Barak, gave this gas field for free to the Palestinian Authority to dig, to take out the gas, and to make money, prosperity, and to become rich like Abu Dhabi. Why not? Let them have good life. Have you heard about digging there and taking out gas out of them? No. The company, British Gas, has all the contracts, everything is there. Why don't they dig and take out the gas? Would you wait if you had a gas field that you can take it out? You would run and have a company to dig it and to turn you into the richest man in the world. Why didn't they dig for this? Why didn't they dig for this oil? Because they cannot decide who will take the money. Whether it will be the PLO or Hamas, and who in the PLO will take the money, who will sign the contracts, means who will take the coupons from these things. So since they cannot agree on these things, they live in poverty. Okay? So this just to show you how little they care about prosperity, money, rebuilding, flourishing. The jihad is much more important because this is in their scale of values and priorities, the jihad against Israel is much more important. And this is the toolbox which they work according in that place, in this region. The fight against Israel, the willing to see Israel erased from the ground in that place is much more important for them than rebuilding Gaza. And they will do whatever they can. Dig tunnels. Look, Israel was forced by the world and some Israeli NGOs who are working with European money, which comes to them from the European Union, was forced to give the Palestinians in Gaza cement to rebuild what was destroyed in 2009, 2012. What did they do with the cement? Dug tunnels into Israel, to infiltrate into Israel, to kill Israelis, as they did in the recent violation. So, instead of building schools, instead of building hospitals, houses, infrastructure, factories, they used all this cement to dig tunnels into Israel. What good life will come to them with this? And this was an Israeli cement, which they used. Okay, so this is the scale of priorities in their eyes. So as long as Hamas is there, with the attempts to erase Israel and to fight in the jihad against Israel, which is sometimes illogical, at least viewed from this side of the world, because it doesn't go along with the Western logic. What, do they really think that they will erase Israel? Yes. In their view, yes. Because the jihad is much more important than another factory, or another school, or another hospital, or another neighborhood to build for those Palestinian refugees who are refugees already 67 years. Show me another place in the world which keeps people in refugee camps for 67 years when they all the money in the world to pave Gaza with gold if they wanted. Scale of priorities. Toolbox is different. How to explain, how to understand, but this is what we have to face, unfortunately.
The West is stuck on this two-state solution, and you put forward this Emirates idea, which is...
By the way, you can read about this in a website named PalestinianEmirates.com. It is my website. Everything there is explained very well. PalestinianEmirates.com. Very easy to remember. Yes.
Which seems to be based on fact and study and research and solidity. But how do you get the West to change from this two-state solution, which has been going on for 20 years now, bashing people's head against the wall for 20 years? You know, one would think they would stop. But are you on this visit actually talking to the European Parliament and European politicians? And second part of it is, how do you start educating the Arabs in whether Gaza or the PA into sort of critical thinking, which is normally useful in the West, you know, to begin to analyze ideologies and analyze the whole structure of their thinking process?
Well, critical thinking is something which happens when you take sacred things and you start raising questions about sacred things. I think this is critical thinking, right? Well, questioning sacred things is something which is well known in the West. I would say part of the toolbox on which Western child is born. You can raise any question you like about religion, about tradition, about the family, about everything. You can ask. We will try to answer and to satisfy your curiosity about these things. Unfortunately, when it comes to the Middle East, raising questions about religion, about religious issues like jihad, religious issues which is viewed like how to look at Jews and Israel subsequently, are things which in many places in the Middle East are not allowed. You're not allowed to raise questions about this. Because actually, you question the tradition, you question the religion, you question our mindset, the way we talk, our interests. You're not allowed. And when you live in a society which the clan overlooks upon you all the time to see how you talk, how you behave, it is very easy to play another music because people will not like it. It's not like here. When you become a student in university, you can say whatever you like, even in the class, because you are a free man. Freedom in the Middle East is totally different from the concept of freedom in this country. Freedom is only as long as you obey the rules. You have freedom. Okay?
Can you break into this vicious circle then?
In order for this to happen, the Middle East has to go through the history of Europe, of immigration from the countryside to the city, and to become individualistic societies, as happened in Egypt, to a large extent in Tunisia. As long as societies continue to live in traditional frameworks, which you don't usually see, or you don't necessarily see when you go on the street, only then people
start to feel free enough to question the axioms of society, or when they emigrate to the West, when they detach themselves totally from the background, they come to the West, they live in Europe, live in America, then they feel free enough to speak, to raise questions, and to criticize what happens in their societies. I can give you a little example. There was an Egyptian man named Farag Foda, intellectual. You might have heard about him. He was very outspoken against the Muslim Brotherhood. And he made fun of them, which is very bad. You're not making fun out of people in the Middle East, because this is humiliation. He had a friend, he's there. He had a friend named Tariq Heggi, who says the same things. Right? You can actually go to his website, tariqheggi.com. You'll read how he criticizes the society in Egypt and in other Arab countries, how he criticizes the Muslim Brotherhood, how he criticizes the tribalism in the Arab world, but he doesn't make fun out of them. He doesn't mock them, unlike Farag Foda, who made jokes out of them. Farag Foda was shot dead. Tariq Heggi is alive and kicking. And this makes the difference. You can criticize, but don't make fun out of us. I believe this was the reason why Farag Foda was murdered. It was like day or two after he had TV, Egyptian TV. He had a good sense of humor. But there is a limit to how much you can use your sense of humor when it comes to Muslim Brotherhood or their religious beliefs and so forth. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what Tariq Heggi told me.
I think that Farag Foda gave an idea about the real of Islam.
Tariq Heggi is no less.
I think that Farag Foda is more better than Tariq Heggi.
Okay. In my view, as an outsider, in my view as an outsider, when I see the debates which both have, Tariq Heggi is very serious. You can challenge him, you can debate him, he will tell you what he thinks. It's okay. You know, people can speak. Hurriyat al-kalam. You know, freedom of speech. Farag Foda was making fun out of you, making joke out of you. And this is something which is not acceptable in the Middle East. You don't make fun out of people. This is something you don't humiliate. You know, I'll give you a good example. You might remember that day when Saddam Hussein was caught, was found in that ditch. It was 2004. And Bremer, the then governor of Iraq, came, it was 2 o'clock in Israel, to a press conference, and he called, to the press to announce something very important. And he came, and he started this press conference like a Western in the States. We got him. We got him. That's how he started the press conference. And they showed a footage of Saddam Hussein with beard, how they check his teeth and his hair. Excuse me, when I was seized, I was tearing my hair out. I was watching it on live in Al Jazeera. I was tearing my hair out. You want to show that he is alive? Have him sitting on a chair in a dignifying way. Talk to him, let him talk, so people identify him not by the beard, because he was with a beard. It was hard to believe he is by his voice, and show that he is in a dignified way. He is alive. He needs your hand. Don't humiliate, because checking his teeth, what is a horse? Checking his teeth and his hair means that you treat him as a beast. This is something which even Iraqis who suffered from Saddam would not allow, would not agree to. You want to kill him? Kill him. He deserves to be hung up? Hang him up. But don't humiliate him. Because when you humiliate him, you actually violate the most sacred cornerstone of Middle Eastern culture. If you have to fight, fight him. If you get killed, kill him. But you don't humiliate him. Even those who hated him did not like the scenery, seeing him being checked in his teeth. What is it, horse? But somebody who thinks in a mindset of a Western behaves like in a Western. In Rome, act like a Roman. In the Middle East, behave like a Middle Eastern. If you want to be acceptable, if you want to sell your merchandise of democracy and human rights and so forth, come and talk to people. You don't do it with bombs and humiliating them. You know, one day in the newly free Iraqi press after Saddam, they had like 200 papers, like within one, by the layla wa duha, between an evening and morning, because it's freedom. One day they showed in many of the papers an American lady soldier standing with a long rifle, and like 20 Iraqi men are standing with their hands up on the wall, being searched by an American soldier, men. But a lady is holding a weapon directed at them in order to make sure that they don't move, you know, against this search. And they all show this picture. Why? Because Americans took a girl to threaten men. You don't do it. By girls, excuse me. This is not something which you do in the Middle East. Another thing which Americans once aired out is a footage at night taken by this SLS, Starlight Strengthener, how American soldiers are bursting into a house in Iraq to search for somebody, taking out everybody, you know, men, women. They stand alone. The American soldiers go in, they search, and they go out. Everybody goes home to continue their night's sleep. And they showed it. We don't kill anybody. We just search the houses. We don't injure anybody. Just take them out from the house. We search the house, and we go out, and they can go in. In Western house, it looks nice because, okay, they do it. They don't do it. In this Arab world, the last thing which you do is you burst into a house where women and girls are asleep. If you do it, you are not even a human being, because you humiliate those women and girls. You don't do it. Now, Al Jazeera took this footage and they aired it again and again and again and again. What, did they become a mouthpiece for American army? No. They wanted to show the Arabs how badly those Americans act by bursting into houses populated by women or men and women and girls at night. The Americans didn't understand this. They gave those jihadists in Iraq of 2004 a weapon against the Americans by showing this footage. You want to search a house? Surround it with soldiers, call upon them with a megaphone to come out, let them dress, come out dressed, then you go in with the master of the home to search the home. Do it in a dignifying way. Because if you burst into such a house when women and girls are asleep, you are violating the most important cornerstone of the culture of the West, which is the chastity and the modesty of those women and girls. You don't do it. There are other ways to do it, which we in Israel do. We surround the house, we call upon them, hey guys, you are surrounded, please get dressed and come out. And then the master of the home will come out the last. When he comes out, you take him, you go into the house, you search it if you need, and with him and at home. And you go out. If you find somebody, you didn't find somebody, go out and let them all go in and continue the night sleep. This is how you do it, if you have to do it. but you don't burst into this. So, and knowing the culture actually prevented the educating of the people. How can you educate them? By acting in a way which is totally contradictory to the culture of the place. This is why you have to learn. And about learning the Middle East, if somebody of you has to remove something from his hand, because it's dangerous, to whom will you take to do it? You go to somebody who learned medicine for 7 years, who specialized in surgery for another 3 or 4 years, and has experience of 10 years of removing these things. So if somebody who 20 years deals with these things before you let him take out the first hair out of your hand, right? Okay? How many years did American presidents, in plural, learn about the Middle East? If not years, how many months? If not months, how many weeks? If not weeks, how many days? Okay? And now they deal not with something on your hand. They deal with, they send armies. Look how many American soldiers were killed in Iraq. 4,000, more than 4,000. And how many people from Europe and in Afghanistan before they started learning about the societies? How can you rectify something before you learn how to act on it? And this is the problem. And in the same way, I blame the press for bringing a picture of the Middle East by people who have no understanding of the Middle East. How many journalists speak Arabic and Persian and Turkic and other Middle Eastern languages? How many of them have access to the men in the street, to the women in the street, not to the politicians who show you their own picture? But how can... Okay, and here, as an academic, I blame all those who do not learn about the Middle East, from the media to the political arenas, through the academic institutions as well, who write books and articles about the Middle East without any understanding of this region. If somebody of you will learn Arabic, or Turkic, or Persian, this will be my reward.
But we don't cover just the Middle East. We cover a much broader area. I mean, your focus is very local. Ours is not.
Well, look, you have a colleague named Robert Fisk. Writes for The Guardian? Independent. This man, let's say, he doesn't like Israel. Okay, I put it aside. He lived for a long time in Lebanon. He speaks Arabic, understands Arabic at least. I salute him because he lives there. He smells the smells of the bazaar, of the souk, of the market. He listens to people. We have Amira Haas in Israel, writes for Haaretz. This lady lives in Ramallah. She's as far as could be from being Zionist. I salute her. Because she's doing the right way how to write about a population which she covers. So you're right that you guys have to cover many, and I don't have a solution to this problem. But somebody who specializes in the Middle East, in my humble view, should live there, should speak Arabic, should know how to read Arabic, should be able to listen to what the man in the street says in Arabic. You know what? Jokes in Arabic. Jokes are in some places the best indicator for what people believe, what people think, how they... And jokes are very important in this issue. If you want to understand the society, listen to the jokes. But how can you understand the joke, especially when it's a colloquial Arabic, whether Egyptian or Yemenite or Syrian or Iraqi, if you don't live there? It's not a written Arabic, it's different Arabic. So definitely you point to a problem. But you as a press have responsibility. Because you shape the way how people think in the academic institutions in many cases and in political arenas. Politicians, you know how mediocre they are, how shallow they are. You know better than me. Because they also have to deal with infrastructure, with education, with industry, with everything in this country. How can a politician become an expert about the Middle East? So what's the solution? So at least the press should be specializing in something. Otherwise, don't deal with this if you don't really understand it. Because you have a responsibility. You cannot escape from this responsibility. I think this is what my message is.